Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am? I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man? I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know who I am.
So confused in this life full of mystery. Guess I'm glad it ain't a life full of misery. I wanna dance, I wanna fly, I wanna let it free. But that's a different side of people they don't wanna see. I've been caught up in my mind sometimes, so I rhyme just to feel alright. And when the rhyming did good, that's when I just understood it was by design. And when I feel this way, I just walk and talk to appear this way, baby. I don't know what to say, baby. I don't know what I am, baby. That's just how I play, baby. Yeah.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?
Powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. I am your host, Lionel Jones, and I'm excited to get on today and talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Because I think over the past week, it's been a tumultuous week, but it's also been a week that we've learned a lot about the Minnesota Vikings franchise. What have we learned? Well, we're going to discuss that in a minute. But before we get started, hit that like and subscribe button. Let's keep this thing going. The Minnesota Vikings have been a really, really noisy team so far this offseason and into training camp. And I just want that noise to just die down. Man, I've been freaking crossing my fingers every practice that something else just wouldn't go wrong. Like, that's how I feel every day when I know the Minnesota Vikings have a practice. Like, I'm so gun shy that I feel like at the end of the day, there's going to be some sort of bad news. Somebody's going to be hurt. Somebody's going to get carted off the field. Something. And so every day I just cross my fingers. No bad news. No bad news today. No bad news. That's just where I've been when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings. So there's a lot of things to cover with the Minnesota Vikings, but today is what really have we learned from the Vikes? Here's what I know. Here's what I've learned. KOC needs to get his contract extension. I can throw Quacey in there as well, but for sure KOC right now needs a contract extension. Why? Because J.J. McCarthy is hurt. He's out for the year, and KOC is now tied to J.J. McCarthy. What are you going to do? You're going to not give KOC his extension when the quarterback that he picked is now out for the year and he really won't get a chance to work with him. Like, you want to give KOC a chance to grow roots with the Minnesota Vikings along with J.J. McCarthy. So you got to give him a contract extension. J.J.'s hurt. The timeline has been moved back a little bit. You got to give him a contract extension. You can't let KOC go at the end of next year when that's going to be J.J. McCarthy's really first year, and essentially it's going to be his rookie year because he won't get a chance to really practice that much this year until it gets to OTAs and minicamp. So it's a foregone conclusion. Why play games if you're the Wilfs? Now it's a foregone conclusion that you've got to give KOC his bag. You got to give him an extension. You got to give him an extension. There's no way you're going to have him be dead man walking next year without a contract extension. J.J. McCarthy just coming back. You've got to give that combination, KOC and J.J. McCarthy, a chance to grow together before you can make any determination. The J.J. McCarthy injury gives KOC a pass this year. It gives him a pass. I mean, unless the wheels start falling off the cart, where the Vikings are like 1-16 or 2-15 or something like that. But I don't foresee that happening with the Minnesota Vikings. Hell, I hope not. But you got to give KOC his bag. J.J. McCarthy is hurt. Get him to a contract extension. I can honestly say I would even hold out that olive branch to my boy Quacey Mensah. He's had a great offseason. Moves have been great. I know that there's got to be more preseason ball. There's got to be more ball in the regular season to see if some of these things work out. But do you actually think that some of the moves that Quacey made, along with bringing J.J. McCarthy on board, aren't going to work out? I mean, they're just headed in the right direction. You can feel it if everybody could stay healthy. If everybody could stay healthy, man, the Minnesota Vikings are trending in the right direction. Give Quacey and give KOC their bag. That's what I've learned about this week. Second thing I learned about this week, when you look at the joint practices, the exhibition game with the Raiders practices, here's what I know, man. B-Flo's defense is going to be absolutely outstanding. Number one, I think the guy's a defensive genius. And the versatility, I mean, he's got so many Swiss Army knife type guys that he can plug into different areas of the field. I mean, there may be times where you may see 5 safeties. You may see 5 safeties on the field at the same time. I mean, the hybrids that he has, the linebackers that can switch and play coverage, the safeties that can come up and stop the run, the safeties that can play corners, the corners that can play safeties. I mean, B-Flo is like a mad scientist, man. He's like a mad scientist. And you know that that's respected because there are many people in the league that's just talking about the Vikings defense. You heard what J.J. McCarthy said. He says, man, I'm looking forward to playing a vanilla defense. B-Flo's giving it to him in practice. So if there's anything you can hang your hat on, I mean, there's a lot of question marks about the Minnesota Vikings this year, areas where you just don't know. You just don't know. Like, you don't know about Sam Darnold. You don't know about how Aaron Jones is going to acclimate himself to the running game. You really don't know how TJ Hawkinson is going to come back. There's still some question marks about the offensive line. Where is Reisner going to play? How is Ingram going to play? There's question marks all over the place. You can question the Minnesota Vikings secondary on defense. I'll give you that. It's thin. I'll give you that. But here's what I know. B-Flo going to work that out. B-Flo's going to work that out. He knows what his secondary is, and the front 7 is going to be absolutely tremendous. Like, I feel bad for quarterbacks that we got to play. And I'm telling you right now, if they get the secondary together, Stephon Gilmore, if they get the secondary together, that defense can carry the load. That defense can take some of the pressure off of the offense. Now, I know they still got a lot to prove, and that wasn't a great dress rehearsal on Saturday, but keep in mind, B-Flo wasn't dialing anything up. That was a base defense. He wasn't dialing anything up. So Viking fans that are kind of worried about, the Vikings defense, I just have a feeling they're going to get that together. And I think we would be more comfortable on the offensive side of the ball if we just knew the quarterback was going to be consistent. That's the third thing that I've learned about the Minnesota Vikings so far this past week. The inconsistency of Sam Darnold is apparent. Remember the practices leading up to the Raider game? He had put together about 3 or 4 good practices. Sam Darnold. Flinging the ball all around the field, making decisions. He had limited the turnovers. Then he goes into the Raider game, first drive. He only got really one opportunity. He goes into the Raider game, first drive of the game, drives his team, the offense, all the way down the field. Did a pretty good job. Didn't stick it in the end zone, but did a pretty good job, man. Couple of drops. Maybe if we wouldn't have had some of those drops, he gets into the end zone for a touchdown. But he only had one possession, and I think it's safe to say if you're a Minnesota Viking fan, and you're not a Sam Darnold hater, and you're neutral, did a pretty good job. Did a pretty good job. I won't go as far as to say he was as impressive as J.J. McCarthy, but I think it would be fair to say that J.J. McCarthy got more of an opportunity to showcase what he could do. Just imagine if J.J. McCarthy got the one rep where he threw the pick and he was done. Your whole perspective of what J.J. McCarthy is and what he could do would kind of be skewed because you only got a small sample size. Now, we're going to have to wait on Sam Darnold because my expectation is he's not going to play on Saturday. I believe KOC has kind of lamented that he's not going to play on Saturday. So we won't get a chance to evaluate or see Sam Darnold, but we got a chance to evaluate him in joint practices versus the Cleveland Browns. And as good as he was last week leading up to the Raiders game, hasn't been great against a legit defense that is the dog pound. That is the Cleveland Browns. Sam Darnold has not been great. Now, first day of joint practice was absolutely terrible. But he did come back and play a little bit better today. Sam Darnold did. He played a little bit better today. You know, I got to give him credit. But again, that shows you the ebb and the flows of Sam Darnold, those inconsistent moments. Can he string together a stretch of games and a stretch of consistency where the Minnesota Vikings could actually start to get comfortable with him? And I think that's just what is holding everybody back from really embracing Sam Darnold is just the inconsistencies. And the majority of his career, he has turned the ball over. I mean, look at his stats when he was with the Jets and the Carolina Panthers. And I know he didn't have a great supporting cast, but double-digit turnovers pretty much every year on those teams. And he's been turning the ball over in practice. He's been turning the ball over in joint practices. Pretty much all training camp long, there's been those inconsistent moments where he turns the ball over. He's got to stop doing that. But that's what I learned about Sam Darnold so far. He's going to have inconsistent games. Kirk Cousins was never a superstar like he was paid to be. He was not the guy that was brought in to get us over the hump. But the one thing you can say about Kirk Cousins is that he was somewhat consistent at noon. Maybe not prime time, but for the majority of his career, 6 years that he was here, man, Kirk was pretty consistent. You kind of knew what Kirk was going to give you. He wasn't the big play guy. You weren't going to win because of Kirk Cousins. But he was a pretty consistent quarterback. 4,000 yards every year, 8 interceptions every year, 25 to 30 touchdowns every year. That was Kirk Cousins. You don't know what you're going to get from Sam Darnold. Another thing I learned, our guy Ivan Pace Jr., man, undrafted free agent out of Cincinnati. And I hate those words coming out of my mouth being from Cleveland, the word Cincinnati. But I got to say it. That's almost like being at Ohio State and having to say the team up north's name, which I'll never do. But Ivan Pace Jr., undersized linebacker, run stopper extraordinaire. Got a pick 6 today in practice from Deshaun Watson. And let me tell you something for Cleveland fans. I've been there about Deshaun Watson. You gave him that bag, man. You better be right about Deshaun Watson because he has not shown it yet. First pass of the day, throws it to Ivan Pace Jr. Pick 6, goes to the house. Ivan Pace Jr., the Tasmanian Devil, is a stud. Dude can play. Agent Zero is what I call him. You're talking about a guy that is hungry. He's not hungry. Using the word hungry would be disrespectful to Ivan Pace Jr. That young man is starving. That young man is starving to prove that every team that passed on him is going to regret it. Already, he's a starting linebacker, had the green dot last year. People forget that. So that means he's got it upstairs. Had the green dot last year. Ivan Pace Jr. is going to be a stud. That's what I learned about him. Justin Jefferson's the dog, man. Learned that about him too. I mean, he's got cornerbacks for the Cleveland Browns talking crap to him. 23, Emerson. Emerson, you better settle that down, man. You better settle that down. You don't want to rattle that cage and have my boy Justin Jefferson embarrass you in practice. Like, you can't carry Justin Jefferson's water. And I'm telling you that right now. I'm telling you that right now. You don't want any of my boy, Justin Jefferson. The majority of the cornerbacks in the league don't want him. You guys have been let off the hook because we never really had a QB here. But I'll meet you in a couple years when it's JJ and JJ. Let's see where you are and see if you can handle my boy Justin Jefferson with a legit quarterback. There's been a lot of, in a physical joint practice with the Cleveland Browns, there's been a lot of trash talk. There's been a lot of physical play. Glad Jordan Addison wasn't hurt too bad. He's got an ankle thing. One of the corners for the Cleveland Browns landed on his ankle. But according to KOC, it's nothing serious. He expects him to not miss a long period of time, which I don't know what that means, but it sounds like he's probably out for the preseason for sure. And I guess we'll have to see about game number 1 versus the New York Giants. Last thing I learned, I think the Minnesota Vikings are a resilient team. I think that to be something, you have to go through something. And I think the Minnesota Vikings are going through something right now. People talking about all the bad luck that they have and the team is snake bit. I've said those words. The Minnesota Vikings are snake bit. But sometimes to be something, you have to go through something as a team. And I've learned over the past week how resilient the Minnesota Vikings organization is, their front office, their coaching staff, and their players. With all the disappointments that they have, the boys are out there still grounding it out. That's the makings, that's the foundation of a championship team. I'm going to be patient this year because we're going to take our lumps this year here and there, but we also going to fight. We are also going to fight. And I think once we get this whole thing together and we go into year 2025, I'm not giving up on this year, but I'm just saying, when you look at 2025, where we're going to be one of the top 8 teams in terms of salary cap space, J.J. McCarthy's going to be coming back. All the stars are going to start to align. And watch out, NFL, for the Minnesota Vikings. Enjoy trying to kick us when we're down this year. Because when the media starts talking about the J.J. McCarthy injury, there seems to just be a different energy when they talk about it. It's like they enjoy giving Minnesota Viking fans bad news. But that's all right. That's all right. We're going to show our resiliency this year, and we're going to be back. That's what I learned about the Minnesota Vikings. All the stuff that I learned about the Vikings this week. Give KOC his bag, man. Give Quacey their bag. Like, that's a must. Let's lock that up so it's not a distraction. We don't need to talk about it. There's no reason not to give it to them. Like the Wilfs, what are you waiting for? Give the Minnesota Vikings their bag, man. Sign their head coach. Get their general manager taken care of. Give them the bag. Give them the bag. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. Lots of good things coming up. Going to have my boy Patrick Buchanan back on the show later on this week, previewing the Browns, Vikings preseason game. I don't know who's going to play in that game. A lot of people are going to be sitting out that game, but it'll get a chance to see some of our young guys, who have made a claim to be on this team in the first game versus the Raiders. We're going to see can they string another game together. It's going to be interesting to watch. Then we got the post-game wrap-up. We'll talk about what happened in that game, talk about what's going to go on for the next week in Vikings training camp and practices. Go into that third preseason game, and then we're getting ready for the New York Giants, cutting that squad down to a 53-man roster. We'll talk about who's going to be on that roster too as well. But this has been Unconventional Playbook. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for all the comments, supporting the show. We're going to continue to bring you the best content that we possibly can bring you. It's been your host, Lionel Jones. I will see you when I see you. Latre, man, take us home.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?